What went wrong at Abbott's Michigan facility? Last week, I shared the inspection reports for the facility at the centre of the big baby formula recall. As a reminder, the recall was initiated after babies got sick and died from consuming infant formula made at a facility in Michigan. This week, I want to go a bit deeper into what went wrong inside that factory. The short answer is that tons of things went wrong, and there are just no excuses for much of what was done and what was not done by management of that facility. But I'm not here to blast big food. It's hard to manufacture commercial quantities of food. Doing it safely and profitably is difficult. The raw materials are variable, the margins are tiny, and the finished products are delicate, difficult to keep safe, and easily degraded. If you compare food manufacture to the making of any other consumer product, such as mass-produced furniture, electronics, anything really, then you will find that food manufacture is more regulated, less profitable, and has more supply chain challenges than any other segment. People who work in food production generally want to do the right thing. We are all aware that we have a responsibility to make food that is safe. After all, we all eat, right? So let's take a look at what you would need to do as a manufacturer to keep Chronobacter out of infant formula. First up, infant formula does contain viable bacteria. Most bacteria are not harmful. In fact, of the 30,000 known species of bacteria, less than 1% of them are known to cause foodborne illness. With infants being more vulnerable to illness than healthy adults, you might think that infant formula should be completely sterile, just like many other foods. For example, canned tuna is sterile, so why not baby formula? Canned tuna is sterile, and food safety pedants, I know that it's commercially sterile, not completely sterile. It's sterile because it's been heated to a high temperature to kill all the microorganisms inside the can. We heat tuna to make it sterile for two reasons. A, because fish can contain pathogens and canning the tuna kills the pathogens. B, to give the tuna a long shelf life. If you kill all the germs inside a tin of food, it will be safe to eat for many years. So the thing is that powdered infant formula is not heated up the same way as canned tuna. It already has a long shelf life because of its very low moisture content. With no moisture, bacteria can't reproduce, so the formula does not spoil. But what about pathogens? Why don't we blast baby formula with heat to kill the pathogens in the way we do for, say, canned tuna? Because heat blasting powdered infant formula turns it into a lump of caramel, and it also destroys some of the important nutrients as well. So instead, we control for pathogens in dried infant formula using other methods. The primary controls are, according to my local food safety authority, rigorous hygienic precautions coupled with monitoring of the process environment and finished product by the manufacturer. When these controls break down, pathogens like Chronobacter sakazakii can get into the formula. How much Chronobacter has to be in formula to make babies sick? We don't know for sure, but we think that even very low numbers are risky. When a parent mixes formula with water to feed their baby, Chronobacter sakazakii reproduces rapidly. Researchers who tested this discovered that if a formula powder contained 1 bacterium per gram and was reconstituted and held at 35 degrees Celsius, then after 4.5 hours, it contained enough Chronobacter to make babies sick. If there was more bacteria in the powder to start with, then the bacteria got to danger levels in the liquid formula much faster. And the source, as always, is in the email. In short, it's safest to have no Chronobacter at all in powdered infant formula. How does the Chronobacter get into infant formula? Well, at the Abbott facility, Chronobacter was found in places like the floor of the production areas, and we don't know for sure how bacteria gets from floors into food product. But food scientists think that airborne droplets of moisture are an important vector. That's why the FDA was so concerned with the water that they found inside the dryer and inside other areas of the facility. It's possible that Chronobacter sakazakii was growing in the water that was left inside the dryer between cleaning and the next production run. The bacteria could have perhaps escaped the cleaning process by hiding in the pits and cracks inside the dryers. In that scenario, you can imagine that the first few containers of formula packed off from the first part of the production run might have contained many bacteria, while the later tins from the same production run might have contained no bacteria. What could have been done better? In short, no water in production areas while product is being made, no water inside dryers after cleaning, and internal surfaces of dryers being free from cracks, pits and damage so that bacteria have nowhere to harbour during cleaning. Also, better boot washing so that less bacteria were coming into the factory to begin with. You can learn more about hygiene controls for formula production at the link in the email. In short, powdered baby formula is not sterile. Keeping pathogens like Chronobacter sakazakii out of baby formula is done by implementing strict hygiene controls and monitoring in factories. The US FDA observed multiple failures at the factory where recalled baby formula was made. Water in production areas, moisture in milk dryer chambers, and damaged surfaces in dryer chambers can result in contamination of baby formula. Small amounts of contamination can multiply to dangerous levels when powdered formula is reconstituted. And the sources, of course, are in the email.